The battlefield reeked of burnt flesh and ozone, the acrid sting of plasma, fire lingering in the air like the breath of a dying world. Smoke coiled around jagged ruins, shattered concrete and steel forming the gravestones of a once thriving human colony. Sergeant Michael Reese lay flat against a scorched barricade, his heartbeat hammering against his ribs. The Ziran Empire had called their weapons primitive trash. Now their soldiers stalked forward in perfect formation, energy shields shimmering around them like spectral armor. "Where's that damn air support?" Lieutenant Alvarez's voice cracked over the comms, sharp with frustration. His helmet was dented, a streak of blood drying across the visor. Not his own. Silence. Command wasn't responding. Reese adjusted his grip on his rifle, glancing at the Browning M2 heavy machine gun mounted on a twisted heap of wreckage nearby. A relic, the Zerans called it. A relic that had outlived entire alien civilizations. The .50 caliber rounds could punch through steel, but against energy shields? No one knew. The ground quaked beneath the march of the invincible. Ziran warriors moved like specters, their elongated figures wreathed in flickering blue light. Their armor was smooth, black as the void, segmented plates fused with alien tech that seemed to breathe. Their weapons, slim rifles pulsing with lethal energy, glowed in the gloom, each shot a lance of white-hot destruction. "This is it," Alvarez muttered. "They'll be on us in 60 seconds. Then let's make them bleed for it." Reese checked his last magazine. 8 rounds. Useless against their shields. The Ziran warlord, Verkul, stood at the front. 7 feet tall, his crimson robes billowed beneath sleek black armor. He raised a clawed hand, and the column halted in eerie unison. He gazed at the ruined colony with the cold amusement of a god watching insects scramble beneath his heel. "You fought well for primitives." Verkul's voice carried across the battlefield, deep and resonant. "I will commend your bravery to my emperor. Your world, however, will burn." A ripple of laughter passed through the Ziran ranks. Their victory was certain. Reese's blood burned. He had watched his friends die, screaming under plasma fire, had seen civilians incinerated where they stood. Now this smug, alien bastard wanted to lecture them. He turned to Alvarez. "That M2 still functional?" Alvarez exhaled, eyes flicking toward the mounted gun. "Barrel's intact, but it won't break their shields." "Doesn't need to," Reese said. "We just need them to think it will." Private Dawson, their best gunner, was already moving. He climbed onto the wreckage, hands gripping the machine gun's handles. The barrel pointed straight at the Ziran line. Verkul tilted his head, unimpressed. "A child's toy. You fight with relics of a dying era." He waved a hand. "Kill them." Dawson squeezed the trigger. Click. No rounds. A heartbeat of silence. Then plasma fire erupted. A bolt struck Dawson in the chest. He didn't scream, just jerked once before, tumbling backward, a blackened hole where his heart used to be. Reese's muscles coiled as he lunged forward, grabbing the M2's smoking handles before Dawson's body even hit the ground. The Empire thought Earth's weapons were obsolete. They were about to learn otherwise. Reese slammed the charging handle back, ramming a belt of .50 caliber rounds into place. He felt the gun's weight, its heat, its history, a century-old instrument of war, held together by steel and purpose. The Ziran vanguard surged forward, confident, shields flaring. Reese squeezed the trigger. The M2 roared like a god of war, its deafening thump, thump, thump drowning out the shriek of plasma fire. The first burst hit the nearest Ziran directly. The shield flare then collapsed. A split second later, the round tore through his chest, spraying alien blood into the dirt. The effect was instantaneous. Panic. The Zerans had never fought ballistic weapons on this scale. Plasma weapons burned, but they were clean, vaporizing flesh. The M2? It shredded, ripped, tore apart. A second burst tore through 2 more warriors, their energy shields flickering out before the bullets ripped their bodies in half. Verkul's expression of amusement twisted into something else. Disbelief. Reese didn't stop. He swung the gun left, cutting through the alien ranks. Zarin screamed as their shields failed, as high-velocity rounds turned living bodies into ragged, bloody pulp. They tried to return fire, but their weapons weren't designed for suppression. Plasma bolts hissed past, missing as they staggered backward, unprepared for this kind of violence. A Zarin officer barked orders in their alien tongue, but his words were cut short as a round blew off half his skull. They called it primitive. It was massacre incarnate. The ground was slick with their blood, bodies twitching where they fell. The unstoppable were being stopped. Advance! Alvarez's voice rang through the carnage. The Marines surged forward, their rifles spitting death, cutting down the retreating Zarins. But it wasn't over. Verkul staggered back, his crimson robes stained with the blood of his own men. His golden eyes burned with rage, but beneath it, something new, fear. He clenched his fist. A pulse of energy radiated from his gauntlet, and a distorted shimmer rippled through the Zarin lines. Rhys's stomach dropped. Reinforcements. From the darkness of the ruins, a second wave emerged. Taller, broader, their shields twice as strong. These weren't common foot soldiers. They were Zarin shock troops, and they were coming straight for them. The M2 clicked. Empty. Rhys reached for another belt, but his hands were slick with sweat and blood. One of the shock troopers broke into a sprint, blade gleaming, closing the distance in seconds. Rhys barely had time to react before the alien was on him. Rhys barely had time to pivot as the Zarin shock trooper lunged, the curved plasma blade humming with death. He threw himself to the side, the blade searing through the air where his head had been a second before. The shock trooper snarled, towering over him. 8 feet of reinforced armor and hatred. Rhys hit the ground hard, but rolled with the impact, grabbing a fallen rifle. He fired point blank. The bullet sparked off the trooper's adaptive shield, rippling like disturbed water, but holding firm. The Zarin warrior stepped forward, too fast for something so massive, and kicked. The force lifted Rhys off the ground and sent him sprawling. His back slammed into the wreckage of a downed drone, knocking the breath from his lungs. The trooper closed in, blade raised for the kill. A deafening crack rang out. A sniper's shot, precise and merciless. The shock trooper's shield collapsed, and before he could react, another round punched through his skull, spraying dark ichor across the ruins. "Get up, Sergeant!" Alvarez's voice cut through the haze. Rhys groaned, pushing himself upright. The battlefield had changed in seconds. The Zarin shock troops were pressing forward, their enhanced shields making the Marines' standard rifles nearly useless. The .50 cal was empty. The sniper, Corporal West, was still picking them off, but there were too many. The Empire had learned. These warriors weren't crumbling under human firepower. They were adapting. A plasma mortar screeched overhead, exploding near the barricade. The force sent a shock wave through the colony's ruins, shattering concrete and sending soldiers tumbling. "Cover! Get to cover!" Alvarez barked, dragging a wounded Marine behind a collapsed wall. Rhys sprinted, his boots crunching over broken bodies, as another mortar round detonated behind him. The shock troops advanced through the chaos, plasma blades igniting like grim torches. Private Carson opened fire on one of them, his rifle's rounds useless against the shield. The Zarin trooper closed the distance instantly, impaling Carson through the chest before he could scream. Rhys felt a sick twist in his gut. They were being forced into close-quarters combat, a fight they wouldn't win. "Hold the line," Alvarez roared, but Rhys could hear it in his voice. The Marines were on the edge of breaking. He spotted the ammo crate near the wreckage of the M2. If they could reload the .50 cal, they had a chance. The problem? It was in the open, with shock troopers between them. "West!" Rhys called out. "I need cover. Say the word." West was already lining up shots. Rhys took a breath, then ran like hell. The first two shock troopers spotted him instantly. West's first shot dropped one, his skull bursting like fruit. The second warrior lunged. **2, close to shoot, **. Reese slid at the last second, grabbing a discarded shotgun from the ground. The Xiran loomed over him, bringing his blade down. Reese fired from the hip. The slug hit at point-blank range, the sheer force overloading the shield in an instant. The second shot took the trooper's head clean off. He didn't stop moving. The ammo crate was within reach. Plasma bolts sizzled past him, scorching his armor. The air was thick with the scent of charred flesh and blood. Reese reached the crate and ripped it open. Heavy belts of .50 caliber rounds glistened inside. Grabbing as many as he could carry, he sprinted back, heart hammering against his ribs. Alvarez met him halfway, grabbing a belt and moving toward the M2's smoking barrel. "Get it loaded!" Reese threw himself behind the wreckage, shoving the fresh belt into the gun's receiver. The shock troops were almost on them. "Fire!" Alvarez shouted. Reese slammed the trigger down. The M2 roared back to life, belching hellfire and thunder. The first burst hit the nearest trooper's shield. Unlike the first wave, this one held for a second. Then it cracked like glass, and the bullets ripped him apart. The other troopers faltered. Reese swung the gun left, chewing through them before they could regroup. More plasma mortars rained down, but the .50 cal didn't stop. It couldn't. A Xiran lieutenant tried to rally his troops, barking orders in their snarling language. Reese turned the M2 toward him. The alien barely had time to react before the rounds hit him center mass, blasting him into unrecognizable chunks. The shock troops wavered. For the first time, Reese saw fear in their eyes. "Push forward," Alvarez ordered. The Marines surged ahead, taking the fight to the stunned Xerans. Reese abandoned the M2, grabbing a fallen rifle and moving in behind them. The Xiran formation was breaking apart. They had never lost like this before. The Empire had never faced an enemy that refused to break. The ground was slick with blood and charred bodies. Xiran survivors were falling back, dragging their wounded. Verkul was nowhere to be seen. For the first time in the war, humans had turned the tide. The battle wasn't over, but it was damn close. The silence was unnatural. The Xiran retreat had been swift, leaving behind a battlefield littered with broken bodies and the twisted wreckage of war machines. Smoke curled in the cold air, the scent of charred flesh mixing with gunpowder and ozone. Reese crouched beside the ruined barricade, wiping the sweat and grime from his face. His hands were shaking, adrenaline refusing to fade. The Marines had won this fight, but the victory felt hollow. Too many had died. Too many had been left in the dirt. Alvarez was already barking orders, his voice hoarse. "We need to regroup before they hit us again. Reese, get a sitrep from command, if they're even still breathing." Reese pressed a blood-slicked hand to his earpiece. "Command, this is Reese. The enemy is retreating. We need reinforcements and air support. Do you copy?" Static. Then a burst of garbled noise, a voice barely audible through the interference. "Fall back. It's not. Asterisk static asterisk. Not over. There." The signal cut out. Reese's stomach tightened. Something was wrong. The Marines had just broken an enemy force thought to be invincible. The Empire's troops weren't just retreating. They were regrouping. Wes was already scanning the horizon through his scope, perched high on the ruins of a collapsed tower. His voice was tight when it came through the comms. "We've got a problem." Reese's gut twisted. "How bad?" West exhaled sharply. "Bad." He didn't need to say more. Reese climbed up the debris, ignoring the protest in his bruised ribs, and grabbed West's scope. His breath stalled. Beyond the wreckage, beyond the trenches of dead Xiran warriors, something moved in the mist. Taller, heavier, asterisk, asterisk, marching in perfect synchronization. Siege walkers, the Empire's war beasts, towering over the ruins, their plated exoskeletons impervious to small arms fire. Their cannons pulsed with building energy, each shot capable of reducing entire bunkers to molten slag. And behind them, Verkul. Reese recognized him instantly, even from this distance. His blackened armor bore new scars, but his stance was unwavering. He had been embarrassed by mere humans, and now he had returned with overwhelming force. This wasn't a counterattack. It was an extermination order. Reese lowered the scope, his heart hammering. They're coming. Alvarez was already in motion. We can't fight those things head-on. We don't have the firepower. West pulled the bolt back on his rifle, chambering another round. Then we don't fight fair. Alvarez turned toward Reese. Tell me you've got something. Reese's mind raced. The M2 wouldn't do a damn thing against those walkers, and even if they still had mortars, the Xeran shields would absorb the blasts. He looked at the rubble-strewn battlefield, at the wreckage of a downed Xeran gunship smoldering in the distance. Then an idea. It was stupid. It was insane. But it was the only play they had. He turned to Alvarez. If we can get to that gunship, we might be able to use its power core. Alvarez frowned. A core overload? Reese nodded. We turn it into a bomb big enough to cripple their advance. West let out a low whistle. That's a hell of a gamble. Alvarez didn't hesitate. Then we better move fast. The Marines sprinted across the battlefield, ducking behind broken structures as the siege walkers loomed closer. The ground shook with every step they took, their cannons humming with lethal energy. West dropped 2 Xeran scouts as they flanked the ruins, their bodies crumpling before they could sound the alarm. Reese reached the gunship first, slamming his shoulder against the wrecked hull and prying the hatch open. Sparks showered the air as he climbed inside, heat blistering the metal under his gloves. The power core was still intact, its blue glow pulsing like a dying heart. Reese yanked open the control panel, fingers flying over alien switches. West's voice crackled in his earpiece. They know what we're doing. A plasma bolt screamed past, scorching the side of the wreckage. Reese swore under his breath. No time. The core's failsafe was still active. He needed to override it manually. His pulse pounded. One wrong move, and they'd all be vaporized. Alvarez and the others held the perimeter, exchanging fire with advancing Xeran squads. The siege walkers were closing in, cannons angling downward. Reese's breath came short. Then, a sharp click. The core's safety disengaged. Done. Reese yelled. We need to fall back now. Alvarez didn't argue. The Marines broke into a full sprint, plasma fire raining down around them. Reese stole a final glance at the wrecked gunship. The core's glow brightened. Then, a detonation ripped through the battlefield, the shockwave obliterating everything in its path. The first siege walker collapsed, its massive frame crumbling under the force of the blast. The second staggered, its shield flickering violently before its core overloaded, detonating in a chain reaction. Flames consumed the ruins, a roaring inferno swallowing the Xeran advance. Reese hit the ground hard, ears ringing. His vision blurred, the world spinning in chaos. Through the smoke, he saw movement. Verkul. The warlord had survived the blast, his armor scorched, his face twisted in fury. Their plan had worked, but the battle wasn't over yet. Reese forced himself upright, pain lancing through his ribs. The battlefield was unrecognizable, a graveyard of shattered metal and burning corpses. The wreckage of the siege walkers smoldered, their once imposing forms reduced to molten slag. The ground was scarred with craters, bodies, human and Xeran alike, strewn like discarded dolls. And through the fire and ruin, Verkul still stood. The Xeran warlord moved like a beast uncaged, his blackened armor scorched but unbroken. His eyes burned with something more than hatred. Rage. Humiliation. A refusal to accept what had just happened. Asterisk. Humans weren't supposed to win. Yet here they stood. He turned, scanning the battlefield, as if searching for someone to blame. His warriors were dead or retreating, their morale shattered. His siege walkers, his unstoppable war machines, were nothing but smoking wreckage. His clawed gauntlet clenched, the metal groaning under the pressure. Then he saw Reese. The warlord locked eyes with him, and in that moment, Reese knew. This wasn't about the battle anymore. This was personal. Verkul started forward, his heavy boots crushing debris underfoot. Slow, deliberate. He didn't run. He didn't need to. His plasma blade ignited with a deep, ominous hum, casting jagged blue light against the smoke-choked sky. Reese's breath came ragged, his fingers tightening around the rifle slung across his chest. He flicked it to full auto, knowing it wouldn't make a damn difference. Alvarez's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Reese, we need to fall back. Asterisk, asterisk, now, asterisk, asterisk." Reese didn't move. Verkul wasn't going to stop. Not now. Not ever. If they ran, he would hunt them down. He would keep coming until every last human was dead. Reese exhaled. No more running. He raised a rifle and fired, emptying the entire magazine into the warlord's chest. Bullets sparked against his armor, barely slowing him. Verkul lunged. Reese barely had time to react before the plasma blade arced down, missing his skull by inches as he threw himself backward. The heat singed his cheek, a near-death kiss. He rolled, pulling the shotgun from his belt, and fired point-blank. The impact staggered Verkul, but only for a breath. Then he came again, his movements too fast for something so massive. A clawed hand snapped forward, grabbing Reese by the throat and lifting him off the ground. Reese gasped, struggling against the iron grip. Verkul's voice was low, guttural. "You are nothing." His free hand pulled back, plasma blade humming. Then a shot rang out. Not from Reese. From west. The sniper's bullet tore through Verkul's shoulder, sending a spray of dark blood into the air. The warlord snarled, momentarily dropping his guard. Asterisk, asterisk, just long enough, asterisk, asterisk. Reese reacted on instinct. He drove his combat knife into the exposed joint of Verkul's armor, twisting deep. The warlord roared in pain, his grip faltering. Reese wrenched free, dropping to the ground hard. Verkul swung wildly, his plasma blade carving through the air. Reese ducked, barely avoiding decapitation. There was no time. Reese grabbed the fallen shotgun, racking a fresh round. Verkul charged. Reese fired. The slug hit dead center, slamming into the open wound at his shoulder. The force sent Verkul stumbling, his massive form crashing into the dirt. But he wasn't dead. Not yet. Reese didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen Xiran plasma pistol, its handle still slick with blood. Verkul looked up, teeth bared in a snarl, just in time to see Reese jam the pistol under his chin. No more. Reese pulled the trigger. The blast blew through Verkul's skull, searing flesh and bone in an instant. The warlord's body collapsed, his blade flickering out. A final breath rattled from his ruined throat. Then, asterisk, asterisk, silence, asterisk, asterisk. The war was not over, but this battle was won. Reese staggered to his feet, vision swimming. The distant sound of Xiran ships retreating filled the air. Their forces were broken, their warlord dead. Alvarez grabbed Reese's shoulder. "We need to go." Reese nodded, casting one last look at Verkul's lifeless form. They had called humans weak. They had called their weapons primitive trash. And yet, when the dust settled, it was humans who stood victorious. Reese exhaled, turning toward the ruins of what once was. The war would go on, but the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.